Okay, it's 4:48, we're called to order. Is there a motion on the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? No discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Okay, thank you. No public comment, it looks like. Okay, so our first agenda item is review any new available testing data.
So what we're waiting on right now is the Department of Education of New Hampshire has a set of data of ours that's still embargoed. We keep waiting for them to release it to public. We're not at that point yet.
Why is it embargoed?
Honestly, I don't know. I know that the state Department of Ed personnel is going through a lot of changes. There are people who are taking new jobs and then leaving them within anywhere from 3 weeks to a month and a half.
And you had referred to that in our last meeting.
And I don't know what's going on. We're getting sort of drips and drops of things. I was sent something that I had to ask Heidi to check some numbers, and I don't know if they don't have the personnel to do the work to get it pushed out. What's available right now is what's on iPlatform, but there's other data that I know we need and that we can share, but the state still hasn't said to us, yes, you can share this with the public yet. So I don't know what's going on their end. And the format that we're getting it from them in is very, very mixed up, very time consuming, a lot of data mining to go through it, and because it's ours mixed in with the whole state. So we're still waiting for the state to release it to us.
Is there a reason why we need their permission to release our data?
Because we can't make anything public. Personnel in the district can look at it to review it and see if it's accurate, if there's something blatantly missing, if there was like no data for any girls in the whole district, they'd be like, you know, do you see that there's a problem? We're like, well, yeah, all the girls in the whole district, there's no 4th grade girl information. But until we've reviewed it, which we've done, and until they say, okay, we can make this now public, they do not let that happen.
Yeah, it's an all at once,
Yeah.
everybody all at once.
So it could be that there's one district they're hung up with, that something is
So it's
wrong.
not just us, it's.
Oh, it's the whole state.
Everybody in the
whole
state
state.
gets embargoed until the DOE tells us that everybody can release.
So it's all or nothing,
It's
Right.
an all or nothing in the state, yep.
typical.
And then, well, and then, but you
This
know
isn't
what?
typical.
But this is always a frustrating part with any kind of statewide data,
Yep.
right? By the time you get the data,
It's old.
Right.
correct.
And so now we're looking at possibly January, maybe, we hope. So we're
No,
waiting.
because they're gonna have Christmas and, New Year's in there, and they're gonna be gone for 3 weeks, and,
Snow and, you know, oh yeah.
Well, I think you guys have used up all your snow data.
Talk to Mother Nature about that one.
Dude.
But so until we have something, I have nothing. How's that for an answer?
This is all the statewide data, all the statewide tests, all grade levels that took tests.
Everything.
Now, can you kind of just list those out?
So that would be any of the PACE data, that would be any of the New Hampshire SAS or statewide assessment data, which would have been from grades 3 through 8. There is some high school data that's mixed in there. This would also entail things like post-secondary graduation rates, percentages of students making gains in different demographic areas, so whether Black, Hispanic, white, students with IEPs, students who are free and reduced lunch, all those different subcategories. You can get overviews and, you know, big chunks of data right now on iPlatform, which I know that Annie Collier has been looking at for the budget committee presentation. But beyond that, anything about, you know, how is this specific grade doing in this specific area? Nothing is public yet.
Will we have any data that we can put into the annual report then for?
I hope so. I hope so, because it was about January of last year that I had assembled all the data and presented it
Right.
here at this meeting back last January. But by that point, I think they had it embargoed and they released it at the beginning of December. So right now, we're looking at maybe a month behind from where they were last year. I'm hopeful. And we can ask them for things and we can, email, but some of those emails go to mailboxes of people that no longer work there. We were going around and around with that just last week with something else we were working on that was not related to data. It's just very hard to
And
get a
they had
hold of
nothing,
people.
no message on it to let you know that person was no longer.
Nope, it's
Mighty dysfunctional.
Totally.
it's very dysfunctional and it's very difficult for, a lot of us statewide to get
This
anything.
is with Edelbud as the commissioner?
Yep.
I don't think we should invite him back.
I was gonna drop him a note.
That was
It's
even
actually gonna
better.
be
I was
in
gonna
the
say, he'll
building
be
on
here
Friday
Friday morning.
This coming Friday?
Correct,
At
yes, he's
9:30.
coming in he's coming in to award a scholarship to a student.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Is that an opportunity for dissent?
We should make this
Be
about the
honest about it.
student. Well, no, we should make this about the student. He's coming in to celebrate the student. So
Maybe we can let him give the scholarship first.
Then-
Exactly.
You can invite him
And
to-
I'll text you when he's leaving the building.
Here's the thing, he might come for coffee if you were to invite him. He does try to get out and see people, I will say that. He's pretty open about that, and if he can't do it then, he would come back and meet with you about things, for sure. I'm
That's an
serious.
opportunity.
We're a small state, you know what I mean? We really are.
And he's a
We're nothing more than a
conservative, right?
large
So
school
he's-
district, right? The Fairfax County school system in Virginia is larger than our state, and they operate as one district.
Well,
you
my
know?
brother and sister-in-law, they raised 4 kids in the Fairfax County. We're definitely familiar with that process, if you will, but I don't know, maybe, I don't know. We'll talk a little bit later. We'll ask some of our colleagues on the board, see
There you
what they think. Yeah, that's the best way.
Depending on when, I might be able to come in the morning. But I'm gonna be out of town by 10.
You can do that. What time's the presentation for the student?
9:30.
Is it at 9:30 or was there a window though? Cause I didn't,
I think
he's
He's
physically
planning on-
coming at 9:30.
he'll plan on being here at 9:30 is what we've been told.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm adding to our agenda for next month.
Follow up on that.
Follow up on Frank.
Annual report data.
Yes.
See how that's coming along,
Yeah.
and obviously whatever other data, testing data has been made available, if any. All right, so on to the AP program discussion.
Well, we definitely have some data there. How's that? We have to wait from the state. Okay.
Because we generated ourselves here.
Because we generated it. Well, that's not entirely true. We get stuff from the college
From
board, but
college
yes, we do
board.
generate.
But it's a whole different, it's College Board, it's not the state,
State,
so.
Board of Education, got it.
So Bob has done some amazing work with some of this. So I'm gonna give you some of these thoughts, some of these things, and there's a ton of information here. I don't wanna monopolize your time trying to assume you wanna go one way or another with the discussion. That'll be up to you. But let me give you the 3 handouts and just tell you what they are. And then wherever you wanna go with the conversation, Heidi and I are here.
It's not my stable, the ones on the right corner, ones on the
I
left.
know, that's the way
I'm
the.
not gonna be able to sleep
I
tonight.
know.
Copy was.
To be honest with you, I don't like that either. but That's the way the copier did it, so I let it ride.
Oh,
We don't do a lot of physical copies of things these days, you know? Alright, so what you're looking at, if you look at the single, you got a single sheet of paper here. Okay, these are some proposed edits that Bob is working on for our 2021 program of studies. When it talks about AP programming and what that's gonna look like. And I believe a lot of that has been based on some of the discussions that's been happening here, definitely discussions that have been happening with AP teachers and Bob and Tom and lots of things. So we can go back to that, I'll give you time to look at that. There's a incorrectly stapled document that you have.
that's the right-hand side.
That talks about prerequisites
And then
Well,
plus
yeah, so it gives you just a summary of, for our 5 AP courses that we're planning to offer next year, what the prerequisites were this year versus what the proposed prerequisites are for next year. And again, can be up for discussion, we could look at that, and that is based on some of the discussions that Bob was having with some of you. And the follow-up pages just go into some of the course descriptions and wording. The other document is I think you asked for like a 10-year look at data, but you got like a almost 20-year. How about that? So you got a lot of raw data, but really the most interesting thing actually happens at the end when you look at the 3 graphs that are down at the bottom. And the real powerful thing, of course it didn't print this way because it landscaped it, is if you could look at the 3 charts together on the same page lined up, because they show some interesting trends, right? So the first graph there is showing you the number of AP tests that were taken by students in each year. The next graph is telling you the average score by year, and the last graph is telling you the percentage of students who scored a 3 or above. And when you look at those graphs,
That's interesting.
you see a very obvious change when.
they all, more kids started taking them and scores started
For
dropping.
2014.
Correct, right? And that was when the district made a change to AP policies where the test was now mandated for all students, 1, and the prerequisites were changed to allow more students the opportunity to access the curriculum. So, and again, that's a philosophical debate. You're seeing the data that reflects that, right? And it's very, very easy to see from all of this raw data.
No different than making all students take SAT tests and wonder why
Sure.
the scores are
Sure.
in the toilets.
Sure.
There were some other,
14?
It was, it was around 13, 14, yep, it was in that time frame.
but there were some other changes that occurred between the class of 2014 and 2015.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the class of 2014 was the last class that did not have the everyday math program.
Oh, boy, could have been.
One of the last classes. that
Could have
didn't
been.
have class. That was Brendan's class, so I.
It might have been, yeah, I was gonna say, you would have a better frame of reference than I, cause I've been, yeah.
That sounds about right based on when everyday math Pat is nodding too.
Yeah,
And also that's after their classes when the freshmen or the learning communities were introduced and became more widely used. His class did not have the freshman learning community, but I believe the class after.
yeah, that started in 2011, so it's about that same time frame. Sure.
Just other things that I know.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. So again, that's the, you know, this is the data is the data. We also had a big bump in the number of dual enrollment courses. We made a major jump one year in the dual enrollment offerings, and I think it was around 2015. When did we start the Southern New Hampshire? Do you remember how?
It was probably right around 2015.
Yeah, it might have been 2015. So,
We've had Northern Essex for longer, maybe since 2010.
yeah, but that wasn't widely used back then until about that time.
Yeah, and then SNHU started to really push into the high schools.
Yeah, so in any event, kind of getting back to, we've got the data, you can kind of see the historical trend. I know this group's been having discussions around taking a look at prerequisites, what does that look like, what should that look like, and so that's some of the information that you have. The other piece to the pie, and we don't have anything written on it, but I think you guys have discussed this, is the new online program, the AP Central program, right? You've discussed this in other committee, yes?
Yeah,
All right, Patty's given me, so it's,
I don't think we use the terminology, which is why I think.
Right, so
people are- yeah.
College Board this year, across the board, available to everybody, students and teachers, has come out with a new online platform that provides access to students and teachers to essentially huge banks of questions and some data mining tools so that teachers can start to individualize their instruction and their support for kids in the AP program. So one of our big pushes this year with our AP folks has been, well, in addition to some of this stuff, has been to start to unpack that tool a little bit, see what it's capable of, get it in front of our students. And some of our teachers are doing a better job with that than others. Right now, we're trying to give them the year to kind of play and get comfortable with it, because we don't want them to invest too much time and energy one way if it's not going to create the right benefit. Do you know what I mean? There has to be some time for that. So that if that's something you want to learn more about, we do have a video that we could show you that's about 5 minutes from College Board, but you may find that's not relevant right now to the discussion.
Well, this is called, what did you say?
It's called AP Central.
Central.
Yep, AP Central. You can also just go, if we don't get to it today, you can also just go to the College Board website, and it'll take you right there. And they actually bring you to a site where you could watch a 5-minute video that's designed for students so they can see what their view looks like. Or there's a video that kind of shows you what the teacher view looks like, so that as you're assigning kids different modules, it shows you what kind of data mining you can start to do with kids when they're going through and taking some of the assessments. I was actually just in the AP Calculus class yesterday, and Tim Young had all of the kids invested in it and working on it. And he said it's been going pretty good so far. He's been using it for about a month with the kids. He says one of the biggest benefits right out of the gate is just the access to the questions. So they used to be, it was always very secretive, you know, these are questions, people try to grab them before they're not public anymore, and you know, so you have a lot of the same material and you're never sure, is this something I can actually use with students, is it not? There's practice tests, but now in this system, I mean, he's got international questions, you know, he's got just thousands and thousands of questions and he can drill down. So if the kids are gonna work on, you know, derivatives of tangent functions, he can find test questions on that, you know what I mean? So
The other thing that it does is it provides the teachers with unit guides, and it tells them what skills are in each unit guide, as well as a pacing guide, so giving them a sense of, you know, spend this much time on this unit, because there'll be more questions from this unit as opposed to this one.
yeah, so we've got some teachers that are doing more of the data mining with individual students. I've got another teacher, he hasn't used it a lot individually with students, but he displays the questions, and they're doing a lot of things in class out loud with them, which is, it's good, he's starting to use the site, but we can go a little deeper than that, so that's out there. And then the other piece that's being talked about is summer work, which I think has the potential to be a huge component for the program, but I think we need to make sure that we do it the right way. And this is not a new discussion, there's been a discussion that's around for a while, but if we were going to do summer work and make that an expectation for kids, what I would prefer to see, especially since we have the technology to be able to do it, is a summer work scenario where students are expected to complete so much work over a period of time in the summer with some regular check-ins throughout the summer. I wouldn't want to see, and I think Heidi, Tom, and Patty would agree, we wouldn't want to see a system where the teacher assigns summer work in June and says, make sure you have all this work complete in August, because there's value in that, but I think there's more value in saying, you're gonna be doing summer work over the summer, you're gonna have to submit things every couple of weeks, and your teacher's gonna give you feedback on that along the way. And there's an expectation that if you don't do that, and you come into the first day of class and you haven't done that, you're not ready for the rigor of AP work, and you're not gonna stay in AP. Right, that's to me, that would be a better approach. If we're gonna go that way though, that's an expectation that we're asking our teachers to monitor that over the summer, and we'd have to look at compensating them. I don't think it would be a huge sum of money. We're talking 5 teachers, not that many hours, so it's not gonna break the bank, but I think it would go a long way towards.
Yeah, the expectations, I would think, also coming in, particularly with parents, that, oh, and if they don't do their summer stuff, don't come whining to me in September.
Absolutely, and that would be it.
They're out.
That's it.
You made your bed,
Yeah, and from a timing I mean, AP teachers will always tell you the biggest barrier they have to success is time with the kids. They always want more time with the kids. It's never enough time with the kids. I can remember when I first got here, the whole 4x4 block schedule was a big issue for people because, and you remember that, Tammy,
Yes, I
because
do.
Brennan was involved with that. So just, and I said, I was talking with the AP Lit teacher about the summer work. I said, well, just think about it this way. You could technically have your entire first unit done over the summer if you plan it out accordingly. Now, maybe not 100% the way you would want it, but imagine how much time you would save even if 3/4 of that first unit could be completed that way. You know, if you structure it right, you know, most of us in this day and age have taken some sort of an online course or program, even just to upkeep our certifications. You know, they've come a long way from the correspondence course style. There can be, you know, discussion boards, and it can be any number of things. So that's another piece that is being discussed. Having said all of that, that's the information that we have for you, and I didn't, you know, the discussion can go wherever you need it to. We're here to try to help navigate it.
Can I just say one thing? One thing that Tammy was kind of touching on, and I think is important, is I'm not sure that I would agree that the correlation of the freshman learning community coming into play was congruent, but not necessarily causational. I think the part that was probably causation was the reassessment component. So the idea that you could, AP, the test is a test where you sit down and you take that test and that's your score. If we allow kids to reassess all year throughout AP courses, then they're not going to be prepared for the stress and the rigor of that test.
I agree with that.
So that's why if you look on this draft document here, one bullet point that Brian didn't point out that I think would be kind of congruent and cause some of these things is complete sixth bullet, complete a minimum of 3 assessments in the style of the AP exam. So that's designed specifically to be a trimester, you know, cut up evenly, not like you do 3 in March to practice. I would expect that you do 1 in November, 1 in January, and 1 in March to practice the finality and the pressure of the exam. And I think that part of what we talked about was that our goal is for seat time to be the variable and learning to be the constant. But the reality is that you could have pre-assessments, or what we used to call quizzes, that students can work on and show that they've learned the material. But there's got to be a point where it stops and you take the test. And it's just done. Because if you don't practice that, you're going to have a problem when you get to the test taking part. I was also had a question about the last one. It says to get the AP, to students taking AP courses will be required to take the AP exam in May. This is the last bullet. To receive the AP designation on their transcript. Counseling staff will notify colleges of those seniors not choosing to take the exam of that choice and alteration to their transcript. Excuse me, does that mean that taking the exam is now optional? Or does that mean that you have to take the exam and you don't get a 3 or better, you don't get the AP? I'd like to see that AP designation tied to the score on the test. That's the question.
We don't get
Yeah, we don't get the
until
scores in
July.
time.
So what this means is we have the students all say that they're taking the test. They sign off saying that they're taking the test. We tell them when it is. But at the end of the day, if they don't show up, and then they don't show up on the makeup day. So last year we had a student who became ill. Mom called us. He's really nervous about missing this. Is there a makeup day? Yes, we scheduled a makeup day, and he came in and took it. But if they don't show up and they don't show up for the makeup day, then
I understand.
we'll
Thank
change
you.
it on their transcript.
That was really helpful. So what you're saying is that you don't have the scores back in time to report it to anyone for the seniors.
Correct.
It goes back to our discussion.
Yeah,
with
we don't get the
July,
scores until
right?
after
Yeah.
July
Right,
1st.
I forgot about that. I used to be an AP coordinator. It was
No,
many,
it's
many
fine.
moons ago.
So in this system, they wouldn't have the AP designation, nor would they have the AP.
The waiting.
The
on
waiting,
the
that's the key.
transcript.
Which really it's a big motivator for
It's
the
a
kids.
huge
And one of the
motivator.
reasons why they're taking that AP course is to be able to have that on their transcript and any appropriate weighting that goes with that. So that's a key bullet that I think could make a big difference.
So the leverage there is to get them to take the test, not to necessarily achieve a 3 or higher. Do you see where I was going with this? I was hoping to tie the extra weighting on the grade and the GPA and the designation on the course as if you got a 3 or better on
Correct.
the test, because I'm trying to tie that back
We
to
can't.
building some incentive for kids to take the test seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it is hard to do for seniors in particular.
But I think that the more our teachers unpack that online coursework tools, the more I think we might be able to build in some intermediary steps and expectations that students are performing at a certain level. We're not there yet. It's such a brand new tool and we're all over the map with the 4 teachers trying to figure it out. We openly said, this is a sandbox here. This is a year that the tool is here. We want you to see what it can do. We want to know what the limitations are so that we can all get together and decide how we want to use the tool to try to promote success with the program.
And I think once we have the scores, then we'll be able to reflect back on the dashboards and the students who have consistently been in those greens, which shows that they've mastered those skills. And then is that a reflection of how well they've done? Great, let's keep using this tool. Or there's no correlation, we need to look at something else.
I think if you did something like this summer program that you're mentioning, that will have the tendency to self-select out non-motivated people.
That's it.
Because you are not going to spend your summertime on a course that you don't really care about.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, if you're going to participate and it's got a summer requirement, one would think that there is a very high level of motivation, at least going in. And it should weed out if it's not there by September, where you say you don't really proceed, you didn't do your summer stuff. I would think that would be,
Well, it also shows the students the level of rigor that's expected in the course. So
Right.
now if we don't show them that level of rigor until September, and then by the time they've figured it out, oh my gosh, this is way harder than I thought, it's past the drop time, so they can't really drop a course, they can't start another course, so they kind of get stuck. So this
Right.
is an opportunity for them to kind of test the waters, is this for me? And then jump out if it's not appropriate.
Yeah, and I think that the key about the summer program is there's 2 ways that we could go about building this. We could start with, what do you think you need to make this program successful? Or we could start with how much can we afford to pay people to do things over the summer, right? So if you, just to ballpark it, summer's 8 weeks, right? So if we started by saying, we're expecting our teachers to do an hour a day, I think that's very high, by the way. We'd be paying them about $1,200 a piece, plus FICA and retirement, as a stipend to do summer work. An hour a day might be a bit much, right? We might be looking for more like half that.
2.5 a week.
2.5 hours a week, right? So
That's more reasonable.
we were sort of falling in the $500 to $600 time frame. So then you just have to back up the expectations there. Okay, if we're looking at 2.5 hours a week times 8 weeks, what can our teachers do with that kind of time? How can we get the biggest bang for our buck? Well, obviously they can build out the summer assignment ahead of time. So we're talking about this would be contact time with kids, going into discussion boards, adding comments, giving kids feedback, grading their work. That's the kind of things that I think that we're looking for. You can do an awful lot with that, but it really forces the issue, to your point, right? That's why I don't love the whole, here's your assignment, turn it in on the first day, because I think you'll just see a bunch of kids cramming
get
the week
done.
before. It won't.
particularly if they're coming out of a culture where they're used to, I can make everything up.
Right, well,
Not like
yeah.
create fiction, I can redo things,
Right, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
repeatedly. And I would think you'd want some type of a touch-based scenario.
Correct,
And frankly, I'm probably one of the cheapest people around, but I would see that as dollars well spent to try and reinvigorate and make people
Sure.
personally.
So you're looking at like 8 to 10 students per teacher?
Our AP classes, I would say calculus probably runs anywhere from 10 to 12. AP Lit is probably about 20-ish. It's a junior class, so that's, and then our bio's small, generally, 5 to 10. That's our prior smallest. But there have been years that it's been more. The government and the history are usually large. Those are 25 generally, or more
I have a question
each.
on,
And that's the same teacher still?
Same teacher for both of those right now, yeah.
How do we determine those were the courses for AP? Just historically they always have been, or those are where we have the strongest person to be able to lead it? Just how did it come about that these are the courses that we're all?
And we have no language courses.
We
Yeah.
have had AP Spanish up until this year, and the students have said that they're not interested.
Yeah.
So this
Wow.
year, we actually offered a class on Spanish for professionals. So that's that next level of language, but more teaching the students the language that they'll be using in the workforce. So the way he's teaching it is any student they've come in and identified kind of their career path. So students who are in the criminal justice, and he's teaching them the language that they would use in the criminal justice world. Social workers, education, kind of conversational Spanish for the workplace,
So is,
but at a higher level.
so is language not necessarily a requirement in college when you could get it out of the way in high school? It used to be when I know we're going back ancient history, but languages was a good course to get out of the way, at least get some credit so that you didn't have to do the elementary language or get a couple of years backed out because of AP.
Yeah.
So is it not a major requirement today in universities and colleges to have foreign languages?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look it
Well,
up.
It is, it's still, it is.
Depends
I
on
mean,
the
I think that they
Depends on the
still
college.
Yeah.
take it.
Okay,
I know my own children have taken it at the college level, but I don't know.
depends on
that
what
it's a
their what
requirement
course
for
that they're
all.
pursuing,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Those
but to,
programs.
to answer your, I mean, obviously, some of them have been obvious along the way. AP Calculus makes sense because it's the next progression
Struggle with that.
in the math after pre-calculus,
Right.
so, history and government are very popular with the kids, so a lot of that has been by choice.
So that would be-
Biology is actually relatively new. We've only had that probably 3 or 4 years. Before that, we had chemistry, and what we saw over time, and what we've seen over time, just from kids' interest level, is that it's gone more the life sciences route than it has the chemistry route. So over time, our AP chemistry numbers, I mean, gosh, there was a time when we had 15 or more kids in the AP chemistry program, and then that started to go down. We've also had a lot of turnover in science, so that's something to consider too. I mean, a ton of turnover in science over the years. So some of it goes back to, in terms of
Yeah.
teachers, so it always depends on what the teacher's expertise level is, right? So we had a couple years there where even finding a chemistry teacher was difficult for us, and then asking them on top of that to run an AP program, that was not their strong suit, and that was always let me get a couple years under our belt and then we'll look at that. So the switch to biology made sense, and that was something that the kids liked. Spanish and French, it really was just based on enrollment declining and not enough kids to do it. We had AP economics at one point, and that came about, the teacher that was there, he
Yes.
brought it in, it was great while it was here, it really built up, and then the teacher left and went back to an international school, and there really wasn't anyone who was able to do it after that.
Yeah.
So it's been for all different sorts of reasons. I don't think it's been any one.
On the English side, literature,
Yep.
language, I
Yep.
know I noticed there's not a language.
There is not, because the language one, and that's one that we've struggled with, even going back to your son's grade, I believe it was the same issue then. So we would always offer the Grape A Community College Running Start option and the AP option, and kids would get the option to do either or. And I think at the time, Evan Chizovsky was teaching the Grape Bay one. I can't remember who was doing the AP. Sandy Miles was. Yeah, Sandy Miles was. And so and over time, we just saw a lot more kids wanting to do the dual enrollment their senior year, and I think the logic was they did the AP course junior year, so now they wanted to try something a little different to diversify the transcript a little bit, and we just couldn't sustain running both.
So are history government required courses now at the college and university level?
Again,
I
think
can,
it
you know
depends
what I'm
on-
going
Yeah.
with this, and then why are we giving AP classes in things that are not required at the college
Yeah.
level?
Well, I think it's important to note, so let me help just a little bit, because you make a good point. It's there are a few core common AP courses that are offered at most high schools. One is lit, one is the language, which is commonly offered. I'm surprised that
Language and composition.
language and composition is another one. Biology, calculus, and Gov and history. Those are really common AP classes for kids to take. So if you had a small school like ours, or even a medium school, those would be the ones I would expect to see on almost any high school's
Okay.
roster of courses. When you get a bigger school and you get more enrollments and more diversity of interest, you do start to see more foreign language AP courses and a wider spread. So when I worked at Scarborough High School in Maine, we had 1,200 students and we had everything. It was just
Yeah, you had 1,200 students.
exactly, and they were all full, and it was really tricky to schedule them because we'd have kids taking AP all day,
Yeah.
right? They would take every single course in AP. So it just depends on the school a little bit too. So I think that we have probably, I would say that we have just about right on, but I would like to see that writing language one. You know, it's if the kids are choosing, but it goes back to our initial conversation. So I just want to know if we raise the rigor and tighten up AP and really push the kids to be at the true AP level and pace. Does AP reinvigorate, or do they walk away with their feet? I'm not saying I have a prediction.
I think we need to give it a try.
It's going to take time.
Well,
Yeah.
and then
We do, Ellie. Yeah.
the next logical question after that, if it works for AP, will be to decide if we want to do something similar with some of our dual enrollment courses, right? Because that's the other thing that there's been a rise of over the years, is that kids are they have to choose one or the other, right? Some courses we offer both in, we tried to with English. Sometimes we only offer it one way. You want to do psychology, there's an option where you can do it through SNU.
And then you get back to where I am, I'll be offering college courses in high school that the taxpayers are paying for, and you know I have a problem.
No, I know, and you have, and I don't disagree. And then you have parents too. They're weighing the dollars and cents, right?
And I can sympathize
Right.
with that too. I get it, but when we fund through taxpayers,
So I'm gonna recognize myself.
Yeah.
I understand the point that you're making, but for me, the fundamental question is being able to provide the level of rigor that the students need to advance and to be able to be good candidates for advanced learning colleges. So if we're offering college courses, and because that's what the students can handle, and that provides a level of rigor that they are, that they need, I'm fine with that. I have no problem with that. That to me is the rationale for that.
and I'm gonna sound like a right-wing conservative saying to you, I don't think that the public, a good, solid public education, which is what we offer here at Sanborn 99.9% of the time, don't think, because of the way we fund our schools, that it's an obligation of the community. I want a solid public school. You go above and beyond that, if you have the resources, fine. We are a small district. I don't even like myself saying these things because I'm a big supporter of education, public education. And I think that we have an obligation to provide a solid public education to the kids in our communities.
Mhm.
But when you get into college level, I have a problem with it. I can't get over it, I'm sorry.
No,
I don't mean disrespect to any of you as professionals or as teaching staff. I have a hard time with it.
And remember, you
Because
can
we're
have your
small.
cake and eat it too. There are ways where you can kind of double dip and use your staff to do both, right? You could have 20 kids in a college level course, but not all of them are gonna be getting the college credit. The ones that wanna pay to get that credit could be doing some additional, and you could argue it raises the rigor for everybody, right? You could also argue it
Now,
lowers
if
it,
we were
right?
doing that, now you might have me back behind you, because I don't think we have a very rigorous public education, not just Sanborn, but in general.
Sure.
Because the expectations are not high enough for these kids. And should at 16, should we be directing them into a college format versus a technical format? I think we should. It's almost like the old way of doing things in Europe, when at 16 you either went on to college or you went to technical school and got a craftsman, become a plumber, a technician, things we need. It's not like you're gonna make more money as a plumber than you are as a school teacher, I'm sure.
Mm.
When you think about it from that perspective.
You're going to make more as a plumber than the superintendent,
You definitely.
Let me tell
Maybe
you.
if it's a good plumber,
for real.
The plumber I used, well.
Yep.
but you see where I'm going. I would rather raise a level of expectation, but we don't do that. We tend to go downward to make everyone feel good. That's why we have, it's gonna sound terrible out there, I'm sorry, my friends, but, you know, you have participation awards. Can't stand that. And is that what we're doing in public education?
And to me, there's a way to square that circle, because I agree with both positions, even though they sound contradictory. I do not think it is the taxpayer's responsibility on the whole to fund people's college education and basically give them 2 years on the community for college. That's not what the charter of the school is. However, if they're coming out of school because they have been stressed with a rigorous exercise of educational direction so that they are capable of doing higher level items, is what you're saying, then that just means that we have a higher level student graduating, not necessarily somebody that has a college credits paid for by the community. And I like the idea that, oh, and if you want to get that college credit payment, then that is something that you can fund as an
Which is
individual.
how we do it now, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So I think there's a way to
Did you catch
square
that,
the
Ellie?
two.
Okay.
That's how it's
I
done.
hear you say that. I guess I need to sit down with Beck, because I don't see that.
Yeah, you gotta sit down with Brian.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yep, and I'm happy to
Don't
join
tell me
you.
$100 pays for a class, it does not. Do not tell me that, until you can prove otherwise. Again, I feel like I'm going
If we
against all
can
my
get college
instincts
level
about
rigor for
schools.
$100 a class, then
Sign me up.
Sign me up,
I'm gonna
baby.
take my pen and paper out and run some numbers
for
right
us.
now.
But
Yeah.
I think the advantage that you get inherently is in all of these relationships, whether it's Southern New Hampshire University, Northern Essex, Great Bay Community, NHTI, whatever it is, we're developing a relationship with the college at the teacher level, at the curriculum level, where we're aligning what we're doing with what their expectations for rigor are. So I think that
Is a positive.
is a huge
I
positive.
totally agree.
Right?
I
And
totally
so
agree.
I think that, I think that there's multiple things at play here. It's gonna be hard to pinpoint any one thing and say, okay, this is what we need to focus. I think you guys are right to start with the things that you're starting with, which is what can we do to improve the outcomes for AP, to give our kids the best chance of success. Because ultimately, if the kid is choosing to be in the AP program, whatever course it is, it's because that's what they see as valuable to their future, and we want to make sure we give them the most rigorous opportunity we can, give them the best chance of success to do well on that exam, so that they can use those scores for whatever they want to do, right? I mean, that's absolutely has to be the end game,
And our
right?
kids are going on to better schools, there's no question about that, you can see that with a roster of where the kids went in the last couple of years.
Yeah,
You know, there's definitely big improvement. Again, I'm sorry that I don't mean to sound like a, anti-education. I am not. I am very supportive of education, but I want it to be the right way.
I think if you wouldn't be sitting in this room if you weren't supportive, right?
That's correct.
All three of you,
Exactly.
right? You don't have to be here. Last time I'm just saying, like,
No, but I hate to
spend
be
a lot
down. I
of,
hate to
you
be
volunteer a lot of time because you care. So start with that, right? All of us for that matter, right? We're all in
That's very true.
we all care, so we put our minds together and figure out what makes sense, you know?
It could be a win-win for everybody. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to monopolize.
Just going back to the courses offered, you said one of the things is the teachers involved with the courses. As I recall, going back quite a ways when I was in AP in high school, a lot of it had to do with the teacher. Some teachers had reputations as a very strong AP thing, and that drew people in. Oh, I've got to make sure that I'm doing good on this because I need to be in Mrs. Aiken's class next week. Do we have anything within our system where we are incentivizing teachers to take that load? How does that work?
Well, that's really interesting because I was actually, let me just piggyback off that point, because one thing that I noticed in these documents in this plan is that there's two things that I'm comfortable with everyone here, but normally I would talk to the two of them privately, and I'm fine with the camera too. It's what I'm about to say is fine, but it's important. We need to invest in professional development for the teachers that are providing these courses. So there are AP seminars that teachers are supposed to be attending. They are supposed to be checking their syllabus against the expectations of AP regularly, and the scope and sequence of events throughout the year are supposed to be aligned regularly. I think we need to do a better job of that, and I would certainly charge Brian and Heidi with making sure that that's occurring, and Patty with making sure to find the funding from our professional development funds that we added to the budget a couple of years ago, so that we make sure that the people teaching AP are more invested than the kids, because this is the one area where the teachers teaching the course really does dictate its success or failure. And if you're not willing to go for the week or two in the summer and get the training and align your, then we gotta have someone who wants to do that, right? And so I think that it's not, we don't necessarily pay them more, Jamie, but oftentimes AP courses are their favorite classes to teach. They're often fast-paced, rigorous, really excited kids that want to be in a subject area that the teacher's passionate about.
Yeah, to me, incentives work in numerous different ways. But the ultimate what you're looking for is a teacher that finds fulfillment in having a room full of kids that are absorbing what it is that they desperately are trying to make people understand and see with a view that they see their own view is a very good and unique view of this and how to wrap this together to bring people along. And seeing kids respond to that is probably, I would assume, one of the greatest rewards in teaching. And from a kid's perspective, kids don't remember which classes I took or I got 17 takeovers or whatever. They remember that individual teacher that really opened up the window. And if we're trying to find the alignments, I just want to make sure that there's something that kind of aligns where we're trying to self-select, if you will, kids that are willing to put in that effort to be that kind of a host, that a teacher can work with, and at the same time find teachers that are willing to have that passion, and then how can we make that better for them to be able to find and draw that passion.
Sign me up to teach AP music theory tomorrow. I'm in.
To sign up to teach what?
AP music theory. I would love that.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, Heidi's a scheduling genius when she does the master schedule. I give her a ton of asks. One of my asks is always that I want every single one of the teachers here to have a course like that they're really passionate about. I mean, the reality is nobody's going to have the perfect schedule. You're always going to have your challenging courses, but we try really hard to make sure that those are spread out, because even our newer teachers need to have something that they can look forward to that they're really passionate about. It could be an honors level, something for lower grades. It could be an elective that they're really excited about. Our AP teachers generally grow into the role. They're not, I think in all instances that I can think of, almost all, even here, they didn't start out teaching AP. They had to wait for an opportunity to get to that. It's definitely something that that people aspire to do, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
The AP annual conference is in Boston this summer.
Oh,
so
we need to
it'd be a
send
perfect
people,
one
perfect.
for us to send, and it's not a lot of travel there.
That is
Yeah,
true.
let's Patty.
It's nice
That
and
is,
close.
That's great.
It's a
Yeah.
3-day conference.
Thanks for working that up, Heidi.
Sure.
Bob and Steve are gonna love you when I tell them they have to go.
They would have loved it more if it was like,
California,
Right, I was gonna say.
Anything
I'm waiting
that's
for the
south,
Disney
like-
Puerto Rico.
conference.
right, if it had been in Orlando,
Disney?
Heidi would have been going.
Yeah.
But not in July.
Not in
Oh, no,
July.
No,
It
actually,
doesn't matter
that's
to
my
her.
favorite time to go.
She loves it.
She would
Oh my
go
God.
all the time.
Yeah,
Doesn't
yeah.
matter.
I'd be wearing my sweatshirt and
I actually joked with her. I didn't joke with her. I was actually really serious. The Plastow Area Commerce Exchange, one of the members is going to be offering a Disney Leadership Institute, where they actually have Walt Disney World parks folks come up and do it. It's actually a business training for businesses on how the Disney way works and customer service works. And I told her, I
Oh
said,
my God.
you and I and Bob and Steve, we may actually go to that and see what there is with that. Heidi's like, sign me up.
Yep.
Kidding, I'm going.
Yeah.
Notice how I was left out of that group. Did you
No,
see
you
that?
can come too.
You saw
Look.
that, right?
No.
Yeah, oh yeah, Bob, Heidi, and Steve.
That
Oh
was-
yeah,
Our
yeah,
ask,
leave him
our
alone.
ask was actually going to be that Tom and Patty run the high school that day. 'Cause we're-
That's fine.
I think you need to let me run the high school.
You come down, Ellie.
I'm going to the Walt Disney World. All right, so is there anything else on this right now? Because we are a little over our time. We have to move on to our last agenda
Now,
topic.
digest this, I think, more too.
That's what I figured you'd want to do.
It's
Okay,
good, Dave.
should we
Thank
put
you
this on
very
the
much.
agenda for on our next agenda to,
Good job.
Revisit it, yep.
To
Yeah, we
follow
can
up.
repeat
Thank you
one
to
and
both.
two,
They worked
so-
really hard on this, and I just wanted to thank
Yeah.
them.
Really
Thank
a
you.
lot, it was
Bob.
a lot.
Bob Dawson did a lot, but he
Bob
couldn't
can
be here
make it look
tonight.
pretty, we can give him
But
the
I
data.
also, and I don't wanna make it a big head, he'll watch this video later, but quite honestly, it made the most sense for Bob to work on this kind of project, cause we needed some fresh eyes looking at it, and he's got experience in 2 other school districts that has done a lot, so I mean, a lot of ideas he was able to come up with, that we're thankful for him really investing in that, it's huge.
We can't make a decision to let AP go, but we can make a decision to beef it up and give it a good shot at success,
Absolutely.
and then see what happens from there.
Right, I do think
Yep,
if
I
you wanna
agree.
move on the summer piece though, that is something you should really
Sure.
think about and talk with the rest of the board about, cause
Yeah.
there would be some money involved.
Yep.
okay. All right, so there was an article that was entitled Maths.
Title,
I'm sorry,
not entitled.
excuse
Oh.
me, oh, yeah.
This
Title.
is the editor talking.
Sorry. Math scares your child's elementary school teacher, and that should frighten you, and Tom asked to have that put on the agenda.
Yeah. I think it's just, I guess I'll just summarize by saying, I'd love to hear what you thought. But I think Patty and I have been talking so much about math, and Patty in particular has been really focused on math lately and trying to figure out a workshop model of instruction for math so that kids can do what I would call just right work, right? You need to work at your level. So if we can figure out a way to do that with kids, we know it works in reading and writing. Why wouldn't we apply it to math? But I think the part what the article brings up that I thought was worth talking about is the fact that teachers at the elementary level love to teach reading. They can tolerate writing, but they don't really love math. They do it because they have to. You meet a few elementary teachers, and I've met some wonderful math teachers at the elementary. I mean, amazing. But they just aren't, they all love to teach reading, right? So it's just interesting how the article just talks about that professional development in math and linking math to the process of reading, it just validates where we're headed. And Patty, I certainly,
The thing
You're
that
the
I
one.
really liked about this article, and it plays better on your screen than it does when you're actually printing it out, because then I went and, like the nerd that I am, I printed all of the accompanying,
Okay.
reports and resources that go with it, because it's all very important, it's all valid data, it's all valid information. One of the things that Tom and I have started playing around with, and I've been, going back to this probably since July or August, going back figuring out what are we gonna do with math, It's a bugaboo of mine because I used to be a math teacher. I was math and science. This is a concern. And to put the spin on it that math is actually quantitative literacy. How do you think mathematically? How are you going to take math from being rote memorization of facts to actually having a deep understanding of what does it mean when it's 8 times 4? What does that look like? How do we unpack that? But the teachers need to feel comfortable with the information. And looking at ways to get professional development for them, figuring out what is it that we can do moving forward so that we have math experts along every level, grades K through 6, that there's somebody who is willing to take the lead and say, I'm gonna be the math steering head for this grade level. I'm gonna funnel the information, I'm gonna share that with my team, I'm going to collaborate with folks vertically across the grade level so that we can really work on improving our math instructional practices. Because we know that everyday math is not working. We know that's a given thing. And we've talked about before, some of the publishers, and they're sort of holding back because they want the next iteration of what they're doing to be really good. And they're going back and they're refining and we're waiting on some stuff. But there are other ways that we're looking to approach what we're doing mathematically for instruction. That's not going to be necessarily immediately a change of a whole program, which would align with one of EISA's goals, to look at improving instruction. So, Tom and I have talked, we've talked enough. I don't know what everybody else thought about the article or,
The thing that came to me was, and I don't know what mechanisms exist to do this. Ed schools need to get the message that they need to focus more on math and improving the mastery, the content mastery of math and the confidence level to be able to teach math. I think that's perception, I don't know if this is factual or not, but my perception is they shy away from that. And that's not a focused item as much as it should be in ed schools.
And the other
I don't know
interesting,
how
Well,
the other
society pushes
interesting piece
into
that goes
to
with
get
that,
feedback
so
to more.
I'm originally from Connecticut, and I got my certification in Connecticut. And if you are gonna be an elementary teacher in Connecticut, you can't just major in elementary education. You have to pick a subject area, and your subject areas have to either be English, math, science, and your science has to be very specific, biology, chemistry, or social studies. You don't just get an elementary education certificate. You have to be subject matter with the elementary ed sort of coding to it. I don't know how many other states in their certification, so it's like a twofold problem. Not only are the education schools not providing this, our certification is not requiring that these teachers come out with an understanding of one of these areas.
So
what I was gonna say is, when I was in college, so I was a math major at Boston University a long time ago, well, not that
I was
long
there
enough
before
ago. You were there before me. So actually, one of my jobs was I worked in the School of Education helping an undergrad elementary ed math course, because their concern was, just as you said, the folks leaving that program were not getting enough of the math content to feel like they could be successful and have command of the content at that level. And they were attempting, even back then, to try to beef up their content skills in math. But that was one school, it was one course, it was 3 credits out of however many credits they needed for that.
120 something.
Yep.
Right? So I mean, that's how much time they were dedicating to it back then. I think it's still an issue. I think it's a huge issue.
You hit the nail right on the head.
Will STEM have a positive impact on how young women view math? Because I think there's a piece of that going into play here as well. Because we tend to have more women as elementary school teachers. So if they're not comfortable with math and science, and I bet we're the exception for your age group,
Extremely, yeah.
then they're not gonna be able to relate to the children in that same. So if young girls are getting more STEM exposure, will that open up other opportunities for public education?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
That's her.
This is the next group.
I thought, Tom, when you mentioned that, it's similar to when you first said about we need more professional development. What came to mind was it's similar to colleges saying when we're getting these freshman class in, we need to do remedial
Right.
courses.
Right.
You know, this professional development around math is very much like, okay, what we're getting from incoming teachers and from their ed capabilities is deficient a bit in the math area that needs to be boosted up, and we have to take that step because they're not coming in with that step.
I think their professional development has 3 facets to it. The first is helping someone who's deficient in an area the way that you just described. The second is making sure that people who are practitioners are up to snuff on the latest practices, because it changes regularly and there's a lot of research that happens. So, for example, you could go to a college and focus on literacy, but you may not have learned the teacher's college approach that we're working on, which is way, way more rigorous and research-based than most programs.
But even,
Right, so-
even with our cell phones, I think our kids are reading more because they maybe never able to spell again normally, but they're on here, but we don't do math on here.
Right.
We're in calculus.
Mhm.
And we almost need to have some fun things with math on our smartphones.
And that's what some of these programs and things that we're looking at, different instructional approaches are looking at. It's about helping people understand that mathematical thinking isn't always the algorithm. It's not always, here's the flashcard, give me the answer quick. Because that's what they're finding is pushing people away from math, which is why people develop, and there's whole studies that they might have talked about in here, but they might have in something else that I'm reading, that the more that you put the emphasis on speed in solving problems, the higher the math anxiety is. When you start to develop an anxiety about something, literally your brain shuts off. So your learning stops. And if that's going on with our kids and we've got them doing time tests or this is all that we value is them giving us the right answer and not letting them explore what this means and what does this look like and the new ways that we're doing math right now, which is really just about creatively thinking about math, we're losing large groups of people who could be mathematically invested.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you think about people like Albert Einstein, who really sat with a problem and dealt with it. Marie Curie's another one. Here's a problem, I'm gonna sit with it, I'm gonna think on it. It wasn't speed that helped them do this fantastic stuff, it was the persistence. And so if we're valuing speed in math, we're not valuing persistence, we're turning off a whole bunch of kids that are like, I'm not smart enough, I can't do this. And so it's a vicious cycle. So those kids grow up to be teachers who say, I can't do math, I'm not fast enough, I'm just gonna go do this. And so we're losing this. We've got turnover with science teachers. This is a common thread. If you're math, you're also science, chemistry, physics, very math-based. I can't do this, you've got a small pool to begin with. The teachers are like, you know what, I'm done, I can go get paid more somewhere else, whatever. So it's a constant issue. So there's a lot of different pieces that are playing into this, which is what made this article so interesting. There's all these different facets. So we've got to do what we can with this, and we've got to think about not only what are the kids getting, but what are our teachers getting, and how do we support them in supporting our kids?
Which goes back to the third reason why for PD. The third one is to teach someone a new program or approach
Right.
and roll it out. Right? So one is to catch them up. Two is to make sure everyone stays
Current.
current.
Relevant,
And then the third is to roll out something new. And we're being very
Get out.
careful about this next step with math. We want to do this right. And I'm not going to be cautious to the point of neuroticism or
Inaction,
something,
right.
like we're going to do something. But I do want to be careful about it because there is a stigma about math for a lot of people and they may not dare to say it. So if we can't get them to say it, then we can't help them with it. And then there are other things that it's just literally important to think about the fact that figuring out how to get kids interested in math is really hard to do, and it's important.
And those
So
STEM
it's
classes
balance.
are important with that.
Right.
Because it's
That's
like
that's
suddenly,
the interest piece.
how do I make this machine go faster? And then all of a sudden it's the math behind it. And when the kids start asking the questions about it, that's when you hook them. And then you start showing them, oh, this is what this does, and this is what you need to know this about.
It's like
And they want to
engineering.
know.
And
Right, it's
math
the
is the-
engineering piece of it that brings
That's
them
why 3D
together.
printers are great things
Exactly.
for kids.
Yep.
Can I, one other ask that you might wanna keep in play here too, and this can be low hanging fruit. PD and support for the paraprofessionals,
Yep.
in their math understanding. Our paras can spend a substantial amount of time with our kids, and with even some basic training, it could make them much more effective.
It's a great idea, Brian.
And that
Thanks for
looks
bringing
different
up.
at different levels, right? Like I can tell you, we almost never are able to find a paraprofessional who has math background. They almost don't exist. In fact, I can count on one hand the number of paras over 15 years that we've had in this building that I felt really have a strong command in math classrooms. But it doesn't take much to build up their confidence to be able to support kids, one-on-one in small groups and what have you. So that's something to keep in mind too. And some of that could even come from in-house with folks that we already have on staff that are able to provide that.
The only other point I'd make about the balance that you were mentioning is, you're trying to be careful and get the balance, and you're trying to engage kids. My concern would also be about sometimes chasing the latest phase or the latest fad in math isn't the right way to go either. You're going sideways. So, I mean, there are some fundamentals that have to be mastered and that has to be part of the program. I'd even go to the point of saying whether you like it or not. I mean, if you can't do these, you're not going to get the math. But I do recognize that there are hang-ups, anxieties. You mentioned that maybe you mentioned the number of women that are more comfortable with math, and maybe that is an area that is historically been. And then how do you turn that dial? So there's a lot of levers here that got to be balanced.
But this is a great start to
Thank
our
you.
district to do that, to address it.
Mhm.
Say this is a problem.
That's the key. A lot of places don't even say what the problems are, and we're trying to be really public and say, we want more kids to pass our AP exams. We
But it
want our
is a
math scores
cycle.
to be better. It is, but it's also it is a national, if we can crack this and fix
It's a
it,
national,
it's
this
a
is the
national
Los
problem.
Angeles Times, yeah.
a huge national
And it's not
problem.
just a want, we need our kids to.
It is-
That's correct.
They are going to need it to succeed.
I will wrap up by saying that it's my opinion that if we don't solve this problem, our country's future is in jeopardy. Because we are competing against China, Japan, and India, and they have more honor students than we have students.
Their young women think. they're just
So
as
I will
good as the
recommend the
guys.
book that I'm reading, I just showed it to
Yeah,
Tom.
she's got a great book.
There's a book out that talks about all these kinds of things, and it's a quick read. I wouldn't say it's a light read, but it's quick, and so it's called The Limitless Mind,
We'll get a copy for you. Let's
And
read it
it's-
as a group.
and it's
Sure.
by Joe Bowler. Joe Bowler is a preeminent math educator who grew up in the UK. She moved to the United States. She works at Stanford University, and her life's passion is trying to get people into math and get people excited about doing math and feel that math is just as natural as reading. So we'll get copies for you, and I think that it would be, it's fantastic.
He'll read it by Thursday of
It's fantastic.
tomorrow, while he's on the treadmill at 4 a.m.
I think I have about 10,000 pages.
I don't know how you do it. It's amazing. I'll get it on audiobook and hit it in the car.
Oh, it's not the same.
Okay.
No, it's
No,
not.
but when you have an hour one.
But you
way,
gotta-
it's hard,
you gotta-
You can do that.
So next agenda items, annual report data, AP,
Hopefully the stuff will be unembargoed from the state so we can get that on there. Let's just,
Yeah, we talked
Okay.
about it,
That's
and Mr.
part of
Elbach's
it.
gonna be here
Annual
on
report
Friday,
data.
and thought of him pushing in, but he thought it'd be nice.
oh, I'd love it if, oh,
Cause he's here.
could we get a status update on the profile of a graduate?
Yep.
yeah,
That's coming
absolutely.
next
That-
month,
yes,
yep,
perfect.
definitely.
And one of the things, and I dropped Tim in over this, one of the things I'd like to better understand is, we say that it is going to help guide our curriculum. Can you spend some time helping me understand how that is?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yep.
What is the
Working on
process?
graduate.
Portrait.
Ellie, I need to talk to you for just 2 minutes before the meeting.
Okay,
I had a good conversation that I want to fill you in on.
so you want me to keep quiet later?
Okay, we're
No, he
adjourned.
wants you to keep